Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Kyle Decuyan. I'm the executive director of the Poetry Project, and I'm super excited and honored to be with you tonight for this launch of a new issue of Obsidian, guest edited by Ronaldo V. Wilson. As we get gathered, I would like to share that this online event space includes live transcription. If you would like to use this feature, it should be the third icon from the right in the bottom of your Zoom screen. For this Obsidian Voices and Poetry Project event, American Sign Language interpretation will be provided by Cynthia Norman, and the event should last about 90 minutes. This event is being recorded. We also encourage audience members to show their support in the chat. If you hear something you love, celebrate that. I want to note as well that it seems like a few folks have had trouble logging into the Zoom link. I'm monitoring the Poetry Project's info account. I'll be admitting folks into the space with any messages that we receive. I also want to let you know that I'm joined this evening by my colleagues from the Poetry Project, Noah Mendoza and Anna Kryenberg. We endeavor to make this a welcoming, supportive, and safe space, and our understanding of what this work encompasses evolves on an ongoing basis. Anna will be sharing a link to our statement on safer spaces in the chat. If you do receive any unwanted private communications during the course of the event, you can chat Anna, Noah, or myself, and we'll make sure to turn our attention toward that. If we were gathered in the physical venue of the Poetry Project tonight, we would be at St. Mark's Church in the Bowery. The work of New Place and New Relation is something we are dedicated to in our stewardship of our site and our project. And we also know that this stewardship must necessarily include acknowledgement, accountability, self-reflection, and repair with regard to the complex acts of violence, displacement, and bondage which have happened on the land our specific venue occupies. As part of this, we would like to acknowledge that our venue, as well as the place I'm speaking from tonight, occupy the unceded homelands of the Lenape people, Lenape-Kohing. Very shortly, Anna will be placing a link into the chat for nativeland.ca, not as an endorsement of this resource's completeness, but as an offering to anyone who may feel compelled to also consider the histories of the places where they are and how these histories shape our listening subjecthoods in the present and the future. Now, I'd like to share bios for Ronaldo V. Wilson and Duriel Harris from Obsidian. Ronaldo V. Wilson, poet, interdisciplinary artist, and academic, is the author of Narrative of the Life of the Brown Boy and the White Man, winner of the Cave Canem Prize, Poems of the Black Object, winner of the Tom Gunn Award for Gay Poetry and the Asian American Literary Award in Poetry, Farther Traveler, Poetry, Prose, Other, finalist for a Tom Gunn Award for Gay Poetry, and Lucy 72. His latest books are Carmelina, Figures, and Virgil Kills, Stories. The recipient of numerous fellowships, including Cave Canem, the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown, the Ford Foundation, Kundiman, McDowell, the Robert Rauschenberg Foundation, and Yaddo, Wilson is professor of creative writing and literature at UC Santa Cruz. Duriel E. Harris is a writer, performer, artist, and scholar. She is author of 3 critically acclaimed volumes of poetry, including No Dictionary of a Living Tongue from Nightboat in 2017, Drag, 2003, and Amnesiac Poems, 2010. Multi-genre works include the one-woman theatrical performance, Thingification, the video collaboration, Speleology, and the sound and image project, Blood Labyrinth. Co-founder of the Black Took Collective, Harris is professor of poetry and poetics at Illinois State University and editor-in-chief of the award-winning publishing platform, Obsidian Literature and Arts in the African Diaspora. We hope you enjoy what will be a wonderful evening of sharing and conversation. And now, please welcome Ronaldo V. Wilson and Duriel E. Harris.
Greetings, everyone. It's so lovely to see you. I wanted to thank you, Kyle, for your beautiful introduction and the Poetry Project, a place I hold dear in many, many ways, including the way in which we will be led tonight. It's so wonderful to share space with you all, and welcome everyone to Obsidian Voices Let's Play, our Playground Issue Launch Event Series. My name is Ronaldo Wilson, and I'm the guest editor of this Playground issue. By way of self-description, the backs of Ronaldo's hands are, despite winter, golden dark brown, sort of, reflecting its light. Under this skin, a map of apparent veins that course with blood from swimming, writing, thinking, and curating. His eyes are still alert, color matching his hands, and his face is gently moisturized, jawbones hidden below. He, the pronoun for now, often nods to the right, to the left, and blinks his natural black lashes.
And I'm Duriel E. Harris, the editor-in-chief of the award-winning publishing platform Obsidian, Literature and Arts in the African Diaspora, and hashtag Obsidian Voices, the co-host organization for tonight's event. Obsidian is published twice yearly by the Publications Unit at Illinois State University and year-round online. Obsidian cultivates, through publication and critical inquiry, Black imagination, innovation, and excellence, supporting Black, African, and African diaspora creatives globally. And we are celebrating 48 years of continuous publication. Founded by Alvin Albert and now edited by a team of talented writers, scholars, and artists, Obsidian is dedicated to Black, African, and African diaspora literatures, arts, and excellence. In spring 2020, Obsidian responded to an increased need for meaningful shared connection during the COVID-19 pandemic, in which we still find ourselves, by founding hashtag Obsidian Voices to bring writers and audiences together in celebration of newly created work. Obsidian Voices features contributors to recently released general issues and themed special issues of Obsidian. To find out more about Obsidian, click on the link in the chat. A brief disclaimer. Please bear in mind that gender and race are complex constructs such that any self-description offered for our purposes this evening is inherently limited in scope. In recognition of this complexity, my pronouns are she, her, they, them, we, us, and not he, not him. That said, I am, we are, a chocolate brown descendant of Africans, a gender queer to gender fluid Black woman, wearing a heather gray turtleneck under a Black cardigan, small gold hoop earrings, and eyeglasses with a red metal frame. I also have a tiny gold nose ring and a salt and pepper afro. I'm joining you from Obsidian's satellite office in Chicagoland's Howard Beach Park. We are so very excited to be with you here tonight.
Thank you, Duriel. I'm just so pleased tonight to engage our readers tonight, Sherese Francis, Charles Rice-González, and MC MoHagani Magnetek as our featured artists, whose works in our genderqueer, genre-queer playground space, I feel exemplify the agitation and healing often made manifest through serious play. For context, the larger special issue of Obsidian's genre-queer, genderqueer playground moves between genre through questions of the genderqueer via multi-layered anthems of the body and of the Black self in various capacities of art, served through formal and fluid modes, rendered with infinite surprise and depth of power. In this way, the three artists we showcase tonight make, break, and play with forms across poetry, playwriting, and interdisciplinary performance. The scope of their works morph across excitingly varied modes of language, symbolism, geography, and history, each exploring pain, joy, pathos, and humor to represent and resist form and expectation. We'll begin tonight with Sherese Francis, and I'll begin with a bio. And Sherese Francis is an alchemist of the imagination and expresses herself through poetry, interdisciplinary arts, workshop facilitation, editing, and literary curation. Her work has been published in several journals and magazines, and Sherese also has published 3 chapbooks. I'd love to welcome Sherese. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ronaldo, and thank you all for joining us tonight. For anyone who needs the description, I am a 32-year-old darker-skinned Black person with long locks, or dreadlocks, which I call them in honor of my Caribbean heritage. And I'm also wearing glasses. I identify as a gender fluid, gender unified, because I do not like the term non-binary, since it means I define myself by what I am not instead of what I am. I also define myself as a demi-woman, and I use she, her, and they, them pronouns. So again, thank you to Obsidian and Poetry Project for the invitation to be here. Tonight, I will read a few poems from my poetry manuscript, Pollination, a Seminary of Self, in which my published poem in Obsidian is a part. So this first poem is called Ain't I or Aren't I a Gauge and a Truth? And it's inspired by the true story behind Sojourner Truth's Ain't I a Woman speech. A record of legibility unverified. Erasure of a mouth shaped by deep listening. Instead, the eye's mouth is now lost in a scribe's white hand, overwritten years after the event happened, an echo reimagining the eye's voice. A woman has licensed the truth. This is what a woman thinks a woman sounds like. 1863. When is the sound of emancipation heard? I have not taken their legibility as knowing freedom. A Southern stereo minstrelized on a northern direction. There are autobiographical errors. With these choice of words, is it still I? This matter I am or ain't? A stereo echoing everywhere? The eyes, muscle plowed, reaped, husked, chopped, mowed. The eye still heard about being equal. The eye carried as much. The eye finds another strength. The eyes point here will hold. Amidst all this confusion, amidst so much trouble, I can hear, I have heard, I, a woman, turning a world upside down to set it right side up again. The I, by sound beyond the I, through I, a woman who bears, where was your part in it? The women are coming, but so is this poor enslaved, and woman coming. The eyes, mouth between a hawk and a buzzard. The eyes, mouth, a carriage. The eyes, mouth is mud puddles in the image of God. Reflects the souls of the eyes, shoes, and its journeys. Where did the sound of your Christ come from? Is it still I, a woman? The eyes, mouth echoing like outstretched arms, praying to extend its mouth, and I said, and there was. The eyes, mouth like eyes of fire rolling thunder, deep tones. But a woman cannot listen deeply to a woman's mouth through it all. This next poem is called Aunt Your Mama. Griot se moines, play mas of how dove left to invent land again. And this poem was inspired after reading Aunt Jemima of the Ocean's Waves by Robert Hayden, and also by me researching into what the roots of the name Jemima as well. White folks say I remind them of home. I who have been homeless all my life. Lucille Clifton. Your mama so blue, she seeing things. She see a world she never been. Desperate for open space, she wanna move on. The sea's clutter has been real too long, fixed in another's image too long. Believe her when she says the trees are moving. There's something hiding behind them. Your mama's so blue, cracks are foaming. The ship on her face is worn out. You see the blues in her eyes, the black veins. The South is rising up. Once she danced a ballet for a moon's blessing. She came upon a caustic needle, held it in her mouth. Looking at an abyss, she had to weave a world on, a Anansi shuttle, and made her own greens. Your mama's so blue, she got a ready mixed libation to pour out her syrupy lighthouse, simmering, 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 brought to a boil. Whoever is left quickens into family. She took change when freedom was denied. She performed the act like a mom's made belize joke. Desire, a gaze upon a salvation stirred, a piece of fisheye cooking in the olive oil. Your mama's so blue, she speaks through a mask. A certainty of tension like eyes in town, honey. Dolled up emblem of disaster, warning to believe in waves and their rapture. In the concoction of a self-rising, here comes a freakish name of a forgotten era, a flickering memory of something else, a fugitive light on a troublesome ripple. Your mama's so blue, she dreams of smashing into the world, a bird with a travelogue on her back. She moves her hips to the clock of the east and back again. Sometimes it feels good to take care of the loss. Hear the coo, 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 coo everywhere, where, hear the backup singer in a rocking and rolling history, labor unseen behind the flatness of a new nation, stranger diving into a strange land. So here I am, fake mammy to God's mistakes, and that's the beauty part. She's played the role of nursing a commotion. Your mama's so blue, she wants liberation where the flood returns. And the last thing I will read tonight is an excerpt from Ju Nkonu Costume Okonko Je, printing a rag woman Tempest on a Piero plate. And this poetic play / jujitsu is published in Obsidian. And so I'll read a couple pages from it. I stole the torturer's tongue. It's the first sight of me some see, the first line you hear, first line of defense when I say, see this long tongue illicitly acquired, doesn't it suit me well? David C. Finley's stolen tongue. Cuckoo, also known as actor boy, plays every part dressed in definery. pantomimes Shakespeare's white mass, finds enjoyment in the grotesque habits of paint and horns while dancing to calypso. Descriptions of performance. During a crick-crack mass around the Jack in the Green, a cuckoo nut tree dressed in a bow and flags. On a ship at sea, a tempestuous noise of thunder and lightning heard. Where's the master? To begin to solve the mystery, it is necessary to look south, past the border. When did the borders become fixed? P.T. Rag woman. Here are my reversions of a cheat. Nobody to pass property to when a property is not claimed. I can come and take, finders keepers of a new remembered rhythms. This is how to give a dictionary a melody, to charm a charmer. How did Jew Nkonu end up in North Carolina, Virginia, Bahamas, Jamaica, Axima? A network of rivers, seas, and waterways that served as the lifeblood of the New World, where long-standing currents and flows shape the deeper history. Ma'am Red Set Lady, to every art I call, I bear the kinship, now on the beak. Now here in the waist holds a dictionary of jabs. I flamed, I amaze, I a divine ode, burning in many places on top of the mass, on logs, on legs, on logic, on locations. The yards and the extended whip that I flame, this here and that there. Then I matter and I drew ink. Hear my voice like lightning cracks, like dreadful thunderclaps, like waves tremble. See my whip shake like a nebulous trident. House John, also known as Jawbone. I infect reason. Ma'am Red Set Lady, not a soul, but felt a fever of the mad and played some tricks of desperation, plunged in the foaming. Then all me on fire, hair raising like reeds, and all the jabs are here. Jemima, the blues jamet with child. Jemima captured the jawbone and made jawbone took, with the help of a minstrel band and a ragman child, a dark figure in a human shape. How does jawbone make the dark tuck? Turn the anguish into language. Grown odes, unlocking an eternity. House John, also known as Jawbone. Dare I tell you to be named Calypso of the Sea? Dare I tell you to be only seen by me? Dare I tell you to turn us into a nub? Ma'am Red Set Lady, to come across the yellow sands and let the hands of wild waves marry them, and be a slave to the familiar, bonded to the house on the head. For the strangeness of the story puts weight on this body, and all the more it seeks to hide itself, the bigger bulk it shows. Hence, bashful cunning, Hirikoro, Coco, Dorado, Dub. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sherese. That was so beautiful. It was a pleasure to hear you. I've been listening to this work as I was reading it. Wonderful reading. And our next reader tonight will be Charles Rice-González, who is an LGBTQ activist, co-founder of BAD, the Bronx Academy of Arts and Dance, and an assistant professor at Hostos Community College. His debut novel, Chulito, received recognition from the American Library Association and the National Books Critics Circle, and his writings appear in over a dozen publications. He's a fellow of MacDowell, the Lannan Foundation, and PEN America. Welcome, Charles.
Thanks so much, Ronaldo. It's really amazing and wonderful to be here. And thank you, Sherese, for those amazing words. My name, as Ronaldo said, is Charles Rice-González. I'm a cisgendered gay male in his 50s who's both Puerto Rican and Black. and I have brown skin. I'm bald and I'm of average weight. And I'm wearing dark frame glasses and a red shirt with a tie that has tiny polka dots of black, red, and white. I have a blurred background and I'm at my office at the college, and there's a gray mask in it that's just the door to my office, where I teach in the Bronx. It's on Lenape land, and I use he, him pronouns. So I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction and setup to the piece. I'm a fiction writer, and I like the narrative arc. I write traditional narratives, but at times I move from my comfort zone and write narratives that are less traditional. So I was excited by the call because I had written a draft of this piece during the pandemic and thought it would never find a home. So I'm so grateful for being included. This is based on a true experience I had on the Grindr sex app at the beginning of the pandemic. My experience didn't last as long as it did in the piece, but I got the sense that I was texting with a racist asshole. So I stopped the conversation and blocked the person. But then I engaged at first, and afterward I started to think, what if I had engaged further? So the layout on the page will be like a Grindr exchange, with timestamps and different blur. They wouldn't have the bubbles, but different bubbles of text. There's an image of myself as the protagonist. I wanted to use the face pick. I wanted the reader to see the protagonist. I didn't want to use a stock image. There's also something vulnerable about attaching my image, and there's also the vulnerability of using a face pick in an app. Also, I have the antagonist using abbreviations and text. His text has misspellings in the journal, but I would read over them. And lastly, there are timestamps, and I would read some and skip others. And I'll lean from side to side when I'm reading the protagonist here, and I'll lean here when I'm reading the antagonist. And that's it. All right. So Confederate Grinder. Image of protagonist, face pick. Says Latino writer, little green bulb, online now, 0 feet away, love to be clear, have fun, and get naked. Can take it slow, groove with the flow, and have a convo, or ignite a moment with a deep kiss and go all the way. Hablo español. Height 5'7", weight 185, ethnicity Latino, body type average, gender cis man, position verse top, looking for right now. Receives message from 27, online now, 78 miles away. Slim, young, no taps. If you can't host or drive, don't bother. Never looking for right now, need talk first. Height 5'11", weight 179, ethnicity white, body type slim, position versatile, relationship single, looking for chat, dates, friends, networking. Meet at your place. HIV status negative, on PrEP. March 31st, 2020, 4:42 p.m. 27 right. Writer, do you write about shithole countries? Latino writer, name a shithole country. Whatever you have there, down under. In New York City, in Latin America. I wouldn't know. As far as Latin America goes, I've only vacationed in Brazil, PR, DR, and Mexico, and they are not shithole countries. But I suppose that's subjective. I read about New York, and some may consider the US a shithole country. You are Latin, so I suppose you came to the USA. Born here, where did you come from? It's 5:49 p.m. 6:44 p.m. Are your parents refugees? You should go back to your ethnic country if this is shithole country. And in fact, people like you make this country shithole place. The opposite. I don't think this is a shithole country. Why would you even assume that? And my parents weren't refugees, just so that you know some truth. I mean, how else could you know? And I know I make this country great. And for some reason, my success as a writer and professor is celebrated by most. For others, it pisses them off. Imagine that. I could probably say the same to you. You and your parents and grandparents go back to your country because everyone in this US or their families came from somewhere else. But you know that, right? It's 8:09 p.m. I suddenly fear that my phone location could be tracked, so I check to see the distance is still 78 miles from New York City. You're 78 miles from New York City, so in upstate New York, or out in Jersey, or maybe Long Island or Connecticut. Either way, you're in a place that requires someone who has a car or who can host if you want to get laid. So I was curious as to why this 27-year-old is writing to me. But you were being an ass from your first comment, and it didn't take much for you to reveal yourself. As you hide behind the app without a photo, take care, 8:10 p.m. I consider blocking him after hitting send, 8:15 p.m. You come to a system built by Washington and Company. You did not go to your Bolivia and the like. You chose this system or your parents, so this talk is inconsistent. Washington and Company were all descendants of immigrants. So my talk is consistent with the history of America. You are not listening to me. Say exactly what you intend. I'm back to thinking about blocking him again, but I get distracted by Grindr. Taps from Sexy Poppy 910, Hot Brother 9x6, and Lick My Hole. I check to see if 27 responded or if his distance has changed, because you come to a system built by Washington and Company too. It's 8:34 p.m., 8:38 p.m. I have the right. Yes, I have the right. I go back to texting with Sexy Poppy 910, Hot Brother 9x6, and Lick My Hole. We all just flirt, trade pictures, and allude to hooking up when all this is over, because we're all hashtag COVID celibate. 9:08 p.m. You are a descendant of parasites. Washington was not even US born. First of all, you don't know the history of this country and you call yourself a writer. I was right saying that shithole writers are worth nothing. You no knowledge, false ambition, parasiting. 9:13. About to turn in, I realized that I had not thought of Confederate Grinder because I'd been chatting with other guys on the app and then watched an episode from the first season of Ugly Betty on Hulu to revel in Vanessa Williams serving it up. But then I remember and think, did I block him because that distance can get closer while I'm sleeping and I could wake up with some racist fuck at my doorstep or creeping into my window. When I check, I see the earlier messages from 27, 9:08 at 9:13 p.m. The word parasite ignites my rage. You got it all wrong, but you're convinced and only capable of healing what you believe or how you want to understand the US. The language you use is familiar. It's the kind of language used by people who hide behind profiles with no pictures and other things to cloak their faces. You're stuck in your corner with your beliefs, and I'll move forward with mine, having heard and understood you. It's now April 1st, 12:22 a.m. I want to block him, but wonder if he will be able to see the message if I block him. I checked the distance. It hasn't changed. Still 78 miles away. I let my message stand. And I'll stop there. And the exchanges continue to 1:27 a.m. And just keep in mind they started at 4:30 p.m. But we'll talk more about time and all that stuff later on. So thank you.
Yes, we will talk more. Thank you, Charles, for a beautiful reading. I love being suspended after that too. Our next reader tonight will be MC MoHagani Magnetek, who resides in Anchorage. She's a prolific writer who is cooler than ice water and has earned degrees in anthropology, BA, English, BA, forensic death investigation, graduate certificate, and a master's of fine arts in creative writing and literary arts. She's currently working on getting her life together. She's a Coast Guard veteran, community organizer, and human rights advocate who is world-renowned, nationally recognized, and locally accepted as the undisputed people's champ because she believes poetry is therapeutic. Some of her works have been published in Building Fires in the Snow, 2016, Alaska Women Speak, Spring 2019, and Women Scream International Poetry Anthology of Female Voices 2020. She has written 2 novels, The Mad Fantastic, 2098 in 2020, and Death by a Thousand Kisses, a Ms. Mahogany Bones murder mystery, 2021. Her list of accolades also includes jumping over 5 cars on her bike and chaining herself to a tree for justice, equality and respect for all people, selling laundry detergent pods to crusty children and dusty adults who all just want to be fresh and clean, as well as trying fish are her favorite pastimes. So let's welcome, please, MC MoHagani Magnetek.
Thank you, thank you. I was just frying fish last night, so yeah, that's right on. That's what I do. I am MC MoHagani Magnetek. I'm a 46-year-old transgender / non-binary African-American woman. I'm wearing hot pink tonight because that's all I could find in the closet really quickly. I have a key earring on. I got a little bedazzle. I have a Monroe, a nose ring, and I'm wearing glasses and some Kyrie Show bracelets. And I'm here to share with you all a little bit about my work, Miss Mahogany Bones in the Case of the Microphone Rapist. And as an intro, in short, you know, I did a thing. This is a very provocative work that is set in front of the Lusac Library. This is why I have this as my background. The Lusac Library is in Anchorage, Alaska. The land of the Dena'ina is where I'm at. And so in conceiving this piece, I think about what it's like to, if you ever stood in front of the library and watch all the things that happen in front of the library that takes place. This is what's going on in this play of mine. And it also speaks to what voice is, who has voice and who's allowed to speak and who's not allowed to speak. These are conversations we're always having in the public sphere. So I wanted to give like space to that. And I'm going to read excerpt from this play, beginning with scene 4. Currently, it's a 1-act play, and I'm so grateful Obsidian is publishing this piece. And since then, I've gone on to expand the characters more and dig deeper and to develop this play a little bit more than what it is. But it's solid gold just the way it is, though. But anyways, this is from scene 4. It's outside the library. The characters are a derelict man, passerby, Poontang, Miss Mahogany Bones, Eleanor Sparks, Sassafras Indigo, violinist, and the microphone rapist will all appear in this scene. Yeah, but I cut it off there at the end, so you don't get to see the microphone rapist. Everyone else you do in this scene, but you get to hear about him. Anyways, here we go. The derelict man says, "Praise the Lord, hallelujah this, hallelujah that." Passerby, "How can anyone take you seriously when you look like a bum? Because I'm teaching the truth." "What truth is that? Where in the Bible does it say it's okay to drink booze and praise the word of God at the same time? Sounds hypocritical to me. First of all, I don't drink booze. The truth is in the book of Deuteronomy." Deuteronomy, you old fool. There's no such thing as a book of Deuteronomy. You're right, I'm lying. The truth is, I don't know. I've never read the Bible a day in my life. I don't even like reading, but I know and speak nothing but the truth. How is that so? How can you not read the good book, but hold it up in the air and spread a message like you know what you're talking about? It's simple. You just have to give it a try. How about this? How about I trade you my Bible for that bottle of mouthwash you have in your arms? Take this book, spread the word of God, and you will be rewarded. That's what was told to me, and I believe it will work for you. They exchanged, passerby exchanges a bottle for a Bible with derelict man. Derelict man says, "Yes, Jesus lives in the bottle." He drinks bottle and drinks until he passes out. The crowd that surrounded him was in awe. The passerby opens the Bible. "Hallelujah, there's $100 bill in here." Sassafras Indigo, "That's a crying shame. That old fool never once opened a good book. Oh well, let's get back to spoken word." "But what if And Eleanor Sparks says, but what if you know who shows up again? Who's you know who? You know, the microphone rapist. He's gonna get the business end of the microphone. Kapow! Right across his dome, lights out, sucker. Hiya! But we still don't know who he is. But we all know his words. You can tell a lot about a poet from their words. Besides, where's the poet? We're the Poetess Redemption Posse. We're like the Wu-Tang Clan. We ain't nothing to fudge with. True, but you don't mean, but don't you mean we ain't nothing to fuck with? Last I checked, it's still Tuesday, and you know, I know. Sassafras Indigo don't cuss on Tuesdays. Exactly. Hey, okay, want me to MC this time? I thought you were scared of the microphone rapist. I've been practicing my mic tuck roll pushback technique the last 5 minutes. I got this. All right, let Poontang go first. Eleanor Sparks steps to the mic. Poontang comes up to the mic. Everyone gives a warm welcome for Poontang. Crowd goes wild, there's cheers. Poontang is holding a drumstick in one hand and the microphone in the other. Ha ha ha. Very funny, mother lover. But I ain't laughing, you jive ass sucker. Coming at me all sideways with that bigotry, crime pays those that embrace the hate, caught in that negative mind state. Where's the love? Is that the best insult you can think of? I've heard it all before, like, your mama ain't shit. Put downs, ridicules, and a plethora of other discs. My heart don't pump no Kool-Aid. I keep it moving. I have no attention to be paid. Entertaining your shenanigans got me flaming, burning orange, blue, high from all the shaming. While I'm dumpster diving for succulent hot shit sandwiches for free 99 to eat. You talk about a new pair of shoes while I'm missing my feet. I can't stand to walk on my own. Don't know if by winter I'll be in a home. So I got buttoned down, knuckle up to weather the storm. Take down shooters of the easy Jesus, brandy, and or whiskey to stay warm. Best believe I got some bad habits I don't suggest for beginners. I'm still here after being houseless for 7 Alaskan harsh winters. Ha ha ha, very funny, mother lover. I ain't laughing, so take a long walk off of flat earth, you jive ass sucker, and fall straight to hell. I didn't ask for this. I'm a winner, but still fell off the wagon, hit my head, no longer sober, but I ain't dead. I got plenty of life, yet the path behind me is satiated with strife. One bad reference from a landlord spread rumors like anthrax. Yeah, it's me in your backyard, smoking crack, crank, meth, Molly, spice, whatever I can get my hands on. To drown out your stigmatism, my life is hard, I don't have fun. I'm the eyesore you want to disappear, so I occupy to overcome in your face and camp here. But wait, I'm not finished yet, because obviously you forgot the meaning of respect. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Really? Everybody seek to placate, curse, and taunt me? Ha ha ha, my ass. This ain't no game, so don't be calling me out of my name. If you don't know, if you're blind, not seeing, I'm standing on the shoulders of my ancestors, a human being. So yeah, it's whatever, whatever. A house is not a home, but Wakanda is forever. Poor people, indigenous folks, downtrodden and marginalized. Ha ha ha, mother lover. The joke's on you, because like Maya Angelou, still I rise. It's P-I-M-P. Personally, I'm making progress. And so what? I'm homeless. The audience claps and cheers. Woo, yay, Pootie Tang. Eleanor Sparks. Oh, it's like that. Pootie Tang got mad skills. The mic is all greasy, but Pootie Tang got skills. Thanks. I need to hear that. I think we all need to check our privilege at the door and heed the words of Pootie Tang. Next up to the mic, our esteemed elder, author of 14 murder mystery books, and our microphone self-defense teacher, the one and only Miss MoHagani Bones. Oh, the crowd goes wild again. Derelict, man. I read all her books. You just said you don't read books. Go back to drinking your mouthwash. Fuck you. No, fudge you. Let it go, Sassy Indigo. Violin player, here's a 20. Play me something I can freestyle. Play something gritty like a Wu-Tang Clan reunited song, says Miss Mahogany Bones. The violinist begins to play. The path moves to the side, although I let it throw me for a loop. The violinist's violin was found in some veggie soup. Oh God, why must capital always capitalize on me? Is that because my dollars don't weigh as much as my cents? I guess it really doesn't matter, because sooner or later than sooner, Ben Franklin and all the other dead presidents will come running to me. The juice man is pretty hip, dancing on drums while the poet loosens his lips. Tuesday, I think it is, a little mellow for a sunny day. But it's okay if you're like me on a fish-eyed tangent. Mind open and cats are blowed, all because some blessed sun bestowed a few rays of shallow ground. Hold on. Don't think, well, I think it's profound because it sounds like a black day is coming. A funky drummer / b-boy humming. Oh yeah, this is the right groove, the kind of has cats poised and scared to move. Will the real graffiti artist please stand up? It's gotta be, man, it's gotta be. You can see through a fish-eyed tangent. Now that's abstract. Violinist stops playing music, audience claps, whoa, 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 Mahogany Bones. Miss Mahogany Bones says, thank you, violinist. I never get enough of your music whenever I visit the library and I see you here. It's nice to finally collaborate with you. And thank you, Lady Sparks, for being such an awesome MC. You're welcome, Miss Mahogany Bones. Thank you for blessing the mic. And that ends my reading for the night. That was a lot of fun, actually. That is my reading.
I think you're exactly right. MC Mahogany Magnetek. I think that was a lot of fun. And I'm so excited to move in this direction and to continue, playing, right? I mean, I'm excited to hear everyone talk, with one another. I wanted to thank Charles, Sherese, and MC Mahogany for Magnetek for just, kind of charging this space up through language and possibility. I have questions that, I wrote in advance, and I also have notes that I wrote in media action, in the split, in the crack of it all. And I kind of want to read between them all. So if you would, I think if we're all on the same, we're all up and ready to chat with one another. And there's Duriel, I see all your beautiful faces. So I'm just going to start. There are many overlapping intersections across your works. And I should say this should go about 40 minutes or so. So hold tight. And here we go. There are many overlapping intersections across your works. I'd like to ask us to maneuver around some of my thoughts, to have you to speak and be individual and collectively through this conversation. The first question I have is around form, particularly around the relationship between poetry or the poem and the play. Each of you seem to draw between character, voice, and setting in radically different ways. Sherese, you work with the Junk Onu Parade and also poems, which you read today, where I think you're really working through persona, I think in really interesting ways. You referenced the lithograph sketch in your writing. You tweak the terrain of Shakespeare's The Tempest, I think, in your play. Charles, you placed two, I think, visible, invisible figures in what I thought of as Vex dialogue, but I'm actually really interested in them split into columns via Grinder. And Mahogany, you explore the site between what I call a kind of Terror Dome style poetry reading and play. reading as protest site, and I learned tonight reading as kind of front porch of the library too, I think, which is really beautiful. I'm wondering if you can all discuss the intersections between poetry and playwriting in your practice. And you can think loosely, however you want, about playing and writing, poetry and playwriting, just working between those two registers. You can each speak however you so desire to play today. And I'll sort of back out. Thank you. That's the first question.
I'll go first. I'm relatively new to the form of playwriting. I think what inspired me was coming across Adrienne Kennedy's work, Funny House of a Negro. And what I really loved about her work was it didn't feel like a conventional play that I'm used to. It felt like surrealist poetry to me. And I think her work kind of, I resonated a lot with that because in my work, I love to play with persona. I'm stereotypical Leo in that sense. I love dramatics. I love thinking about how can I play these different roles and characters because I see everything as a performance. And to me, poetry is a kind of performance. And it's a performance internally in which the different ideas and lines within the form are dialoguing with one another. And it's a performance with the audience and with whoever's reading the work. And of course, I love that a play is called a play. And with my own piece, it's inspired by my Caribbean heritage as well, and thinking about carnival and masquerade, and how that kind of tradition is a form of a play in of itself as well, both in kind of playing different roles and characters, but also playing around with costumes and music and dance. So it's a more kind of grassroots form of a play. So when I think of play and writing, I think of it in all these various traditions and forms that it can possibly exist in, not in the traditional like Western canon sense.
I dig that. Sherese, right? Yeah. And that inspiration, going back into our canon, right? And for me, poetry and plays, I go back to the canon to Itazaki Shange and August Wilson. I go back there and start pulling stuff out. And that is actually Itazaki Shange's For Color Girls Consider Suicide When the Rainbow Wasn't Enough. If you read the end of the book, and she's like asking the readers or challenging the readers to create their own choreo poems. So it's like I think it was like 2018, 16, maybe further back than that. I read that, and I even know I read that book in 20 years ago, but I hadn't read that very end of that book that way. So I was challenged to write a choreo poem, and in that challenge, I've learned to see something that each time I write a poem about anything that I'm feeling in the moment, and I look at that poem just opposed to other poems that I've written, I was like, oh my gosh, I got different voices here. Because we know in poetry, the narrator of the poem has its own voice that's distinct from the writer or the author. So I know it's like, oh my gosh, all these poems, they have different voices, they're different characters and stuff. And so I've allowed that to like bring life to these characters on the stage. And then as I said, like, August Wilson, Lorraine Hansberry, it kind of like inspired me in terms of as a playwright and everything and bringing that together. But for me in this piece, Mr. Mahogany Bones, in the case of the microphone rapist, poetry is serving as a setting. I think at least that's the way I interpreted this work, is that it's a thing that's happening in front of the library, and like you're seeing this takes place, and everyone has an opportunity on the open mic to express themselves or say things that they're feeling and share their perspectives on the world. So that's kind of how I see what's going on with this work and how it relates to the form of poetry itself.
Well, I certainly want to get more of your work, MoHagani Magnetek. It's just, as you were talking, it was so visual as well. I was imagining all the characters, and we're off camera over here, and I'm by myself in my office. I can like go off and have a really good time with it. I think, it's interesting when we're talking about the idea of poetry and playwriting. I mean, I'm comfortable in writing prose and fiction, and also in playwriting, like specifically. And I think for me, what was interesting about this piece is like I was writing something, borrowing from playwriting kind of structure by having, something that was dialogue driven, but is really text driven. And I think for me, a big difference between this piece and a play is that I think I always imagine the play being performed, right? And being, that the beginning is the written page, and then it goes on to something that the audiences will experience, live, or interpreted by characters, the directors. And for this piece, it was interesting to write it that it would live on the page, and that's why there's all this other things that are happening with it, being on the page, specifically using misspellings, kind of like having this kind of separation, but also it is together. So in that sense, I was borrowing from poetry on the page, right? Because poetry, one of the things is how poetry could be laid out, and how that also contributes to how what's being communicated. But yeah, I mean, I honestly, poetry always intimidates me. I try when I attempt to write poetry, they tend to be very long, but I do love it, and I do teach it. But I think in terms of form, I was thinking that. And also, like Ronaldo, was like, astute for you to be asking about what's visible and invisible, because there is a lot of that is happening, like what is being said, what is not being said. There's moments when, what's the thoughts take the place of stage directions inside of it, so I lay it out like that, like in a play, you put parentheses and you put the stage directions here, I put parentheses and I did the thoughts. So yeah, it was a lot of, for me, it was playing with form, playing with the page, playing with what we see visually. And I think I'll say again, that's what I borrow from poetry, like how things are laid out on the page.
Well, I wouldn't have expected anything less of the kind of depth and feeling. And I want to move into the next question, but I want to think about something that I think, moved across all of your responses, which has to do with terrain. I love, Sherese, the way that you're talking about the carnival and the procession, the masquerade and the mask. And I love, MoHagani, the way that you're thinking about the invitation of the choreo poem and the extension of the form by way of what you're calling and what we know of as the canon, the twisted. And by twisted, I don't mean kind of deranged, but I mean the kind of twisting sensibility of genre that I think Ntozake Shange is, just explodes form and play. And I think, Charles, I love the way that in your work, the invisible is also mapped by a kind of distance, the kind of threat of actual terror, or, this 70 miles away, is this person close? I love that, space. And I wondered if this relates maybe to my second question. I don't know, but I'm interested in thinking about the extension between that space and language, which I think is multiply diasporic. And maybe I'm thinking about language as distance, which is multivalent, multiply material across all of your works. MoHagani, I'm really curious about the role of the mic, its greasiness, how it mediates the speaker as kind of device, weapon, interlocutor. Charles, again, I was thinking a lot about silence and argument in your work, the ways in which language offers us the space for us to think about countries, nations, people, patriotism, all elevated and I think defiled under this banner. Today I'm thinking of it more as less banner, but more exchange of desire. I thought of it as banner when I was reading, but as I was listening to you, I'm thinking about exchanges of desire. And Sherese, I'm taken by the kind of wildly assessed, measured, reactive colonial subjects in the play, that offer new languages amidst an ancient and ever-present reality. And in the poetry today, which I was so pleased to hear, I was really interested in the I, letter I, and the I, and also the kind of mask and masquerade of one line that I was thinking about was "Your mama's so blue." I think she's around the mask. She speaks the mask. You know, I heard that, and I was thinking about that. Like, how is it that you're thinking about playing with language as a material? Do you know, I mean, I'm just really interested in, maybe that's something that is inherent of the play. I'm wondering if that makes any kind of sense as an invitation, maybe language as physical material, language as material as time, language as material of costume. I'm just really interested in the palpability of language, because I'm invested in this in my invitation to you, and your gorgeous response in lending me this and the world, this work. So I'm wondering if you might talk a little bit about language as material across these frames in any way you like, and in any order that you choose to feel fun.
Yeah, I'll go then. Yeah, I want to say that first of all, when I say I'm an MC, that means I actually host a poetry slam here for since 2019 down the street, and it's awesome. But I've also been an MC, and I'm 46 years old since 1998 in Texas and New York and Atlanta and here in Alaska, and everywhere I've gone, I've done these open mics, and any space opportunity I have to create space for poetry, I do. And with that, I've learned really what the power of the microphone is. It's like, I really do not, I have so much dislike for people who drop microphones. That in my novel writing, those people are punished heavily. The Randy Watson law of 1988, if you saw, Coming to America, he drops a mic. That's against the law with me, right? The microphone is a tool. It's to amplify our voices, and it's expensive equipment. So if you drop my mic, we got a problem. But the fact is that to answer your question about how this is the material, our voices are the first instrument that we have. Amongst all humans on the planet, the voice is the first. So, and the microphone just amplifies our voices that much more. And I've seen it as not just as a poet, as an MC, but as an activist, as a scholar. I'm in places and stuff, and you go to these events, and there's always somebody who's snatching the microphone. There's always somebody who's not on the program that gets up there because they think they hot shit. Then there's people get up there, tell their life stories, and they just go on and on and on and on. And my best friend, who passed away back in 2016, when we was in our early 20s, you used to call us people microphone rapists. There they go again. So, and when we were having this conversation about what rape culture is and the exchange of power, the microphone and his words and his languages is tools that we have to express ourselves. And just like racism, people don't understand, racism is a tool. Anybody can pick up the racist mantle and strike someone else with it. A friend of mine, they both Africans, and then another African called the police sounding like a white woman or whatever, because to incite violence on them, because the police is gonna beat them down. So anyone can pick up this tool and use racism. Anyone can pick up the tool and use the microphone for good or bad. So the words that we say are very important. And I know I cuss a lot in my works or whatever, but they're very intentional cussing. And it's not just for the sake of cussing. So with all that being said, it's that microphone, our words, our language are tools that we have. And I think we should always do our best to make the best of what we have. So everything we speak and we say, we mean what we say at all times. And so you never have to come back, I didn't mean to say that. Nah, you meant to say that. You meant to say that. Don't blame it on the alcohol. Don't blame it. You know, speak from the heart always. And so this is an opportunity, and nothing like a stage in the setting at the library. And I like with Charles's work, you know, you having this dialogue via text that like I really get so well. And I'm glad to see like this is being brought to the page, because I like bringing text to literature too. But I'll stop there.
And I'll catch the ball, because I think that's like, I think that's one of the things when Ronaldo was speaking to, about the language and its use, and it was that there's like this, I think, assumed privateness, right? That an exchange between two people that it's happening. And so what I was doing with the piece was taking the private, making it public, right? Taking a space that could be about intimacy and eroticism and all that, and then having the language have a different function. And there's like an undercurrent of that, because I think there's the assumption when someone hits you up that they are interested, right? And then taking that and kind of crafting and changing it. So it was a lot about like the private and the public that I was working with in terms of language, like what do we say in private, what do we say in public? There was also the idea of how language is used to repel or push away, and how language could be used to attract. And also like inside of that whole exchange, you know, and then I take the character out and stuff, and I couldn't see the ASL interpreter, but I was wondering like, what did she do for when I was using like hop, boppy, 9x6, lick my hole, those kinds of things. But going into that space that again might be a private space, or a secret space, or a personal space, or maybe a space that we're not supposed to share, you know, because I think a person's app, what happens is their information and they're having this exchange with another. And also bringing into the myriad of exchanges that can happen in that platform. So I think in terms of, yes, that's what I'll say. That's what I'll add to what we're talking about in terms of language.
Yeah, and picking up on what MC said about dropping the mic and amplification, and how the mic and amplification helps in the creation of space, and the locating of the voice and the self within a space through that amplification. And in terms of my work, and I love that Ronaldo mentioned language as distance, because a lot of my work, I think of the etymology and the roots of words, and how when you look up the roots of these words, you find the different histories and spaces that these words and languages and sounds have passed through, and how all of that kind of entanglements, and I love quantum physics, right? Like how like different particles and understandings and meanings of words through space and time are connected across space and time, even with the distance. And that kind of, as Charles said, the like attraction, repulsion, and that kind of dynamic force of language that helps to shape and surface into various meanings is kind of what I play with in my work a lot.
Yeah, and I just want to follow up a little bit, because I was also noticing, and this may be saying some of the same things just in a different way, the ways in which, because of all of your intentionality in using language, you create a space that I enter, right, for the encounter. Like each one of the pieces is, or I mean, and Sherese, you read several pieces, right? But each one of you're creating a different space, right, for encounter via the language, via the materiality of the language, right? Like and all of it is quite poetic because of the intentionality of the diction, right? You're not leaving anything to chance. All of the words, right, have they function in different ways as far as sound, as far as sense, as far as action, as far as the symbolic, and even the ways in which we can fall in between the gaps, right, of the words and the choices of the words and the phrasing. And sometimes also rise from them, right? And it may be like a kind of, and it's the ebb and a flow, and there's this undulation that's happening. So yeah, I found that particularly impressive with you all's works tonight, how it was like I was in a different kind of encounter with each one of you. And it felt very present, like very concrete as a space for me to enter. So I wanted to also say thank you so much for that.
I love the concrete, and I also love the blacktop, as you know. The hot blacktop summer, the dodgeball. It's what I was thinking about, with this invitation. And I love the kind of coming together in Duriel, ending well, not ending, because I have one more question, which is more of an observation. What comes to mind in the kind of space between concrete, blacktop, and space is, I think, a kind of rhizomatic structure that's moving between material. And I'll just read 3 little bitty lines that I took as I was listening to your work, Sherese. The question, when did the borders become fixed? And also, Charles, that distance can get closer. And MoHagani, and so what? I'm homeless. And I wanted to think about those 3 calls, maybe adding to the kind of concrete blacktop, and think about something that might be related, like when someone falls or when someone slips and you aha laugh, the joke, the funniness, I wanted to end with a question around humor. If not laughing out loud, I found myself laughing softly, knowingly inside through your pieces. I love, Charles, how your Latino writer vanishes into Hulu at times and returns to the fight. Sherese, I was riveted by the keen play morphing between your characters that I read as gestures and also gestures, gesturing towards humor. And MoHagani, I lost it pretty much whenever your characters spoke. Breaking propriety and breaking on one another, taking over, snatching, naming, renaming, cussing, which I all appreciate as funny, and I'm wondering if you can talk about the role of humor and comedy directly in any way in your works, because I also would add to Duriel's comment that the intention is excessively expert in all of your ways of rendering funny, which I think, or comedy. Can you talk about that in any way, humor, funny, just as a practice and in any way you like? I would love to hear.
I mean, I'll kick it off this time. I think, it's interesting because I think a lot of times when I think of theater, but I also think of prose, I use it often. Like sometimes things, you could take the audience to like this kind of intense fever moment, and then just a little bit of humor allows them to relax a second, right? And I think in that relaxation, they can actually go deeper into it. So I think of using humor that way as a way to kind of give a little bit of release to then give a stronger entry point. I think in this piece too, particularly in terms of like the humor, like doing Vanessa, like there's an element of it that is like, this is serious, but then this is not, right? There could be things that are actually more important, right? And so the humor allows us to do that little bit of an aside and let the audience laugh a little bit, and then jump back on the ride again. So I feel that's another function. I will say in terms of like when you were talking about that, the line about them getting closer, so like another layer of all of this, because there's this element of risk, I think, that happens with the apps as well. And so there is this element of risk. It's also set particularly during the pandemic, where there was this whole, like, just even being physical with another person, there was this risk of even death, in that sense. So humor also kind of mitigates some of the risk that's inside of it, so that way they could take the attention away from the intensity of the exchange and go into another place. So that's some of the functions.
Yeah, I remember this interview I was reading from this Caribbean writer. I'm forgetting their name, but she talked about how we don't take laughter and comedy seriously as we do tragedy, and how there's a depth to laughter and comedy that we often don't recognize. And there's an intelligence there. There's a way of us trying to make sense of the world around us. And that's what I love about humor and laughter. I think they're right when they say it's a form of medicine for us. It's us taking all the contradictory parts of who we are and kind of just presenting them as they are and saying, isn't this funny? And us trying to make peace with that. And that's what I feel like is in my work as well. Like I have both the colonizer and the colonized within my blood, and I have to make peace with that. And I don't think any less of myself just because they both exist in my blood. And I use language as a way to negotiate all that and find alternative ways of being through all of that collision and mess of who I am.
Right on, Sherese. I think Sherese said it all. It don't need to be said. But good stuff though. But I agree with this whole, and I would say this, and Duriel and I was speaking momentarily before we went live, is that for me, it's always a standard answer that we laugh to keep from crying. Things are just so ugly in life experiences that we have. It's like, how can I maintain? How can I get through this moment without crying? And then it's with laughing. So it's like they're equal, crying and laughing. That pain and that joy can exist in the same space, in the same moment, as a way of processing emotions and feelings, you know. And I know I write with a lot of sarcasm. I love contradictions. I love characters that are horrible people because they are allowed space to grow. Perfect people are not allowed space to grow in fiction and poetry. It's like, oh, you got it all wrapped together. We don't want nothing to do with you. You're good. But having a character and having a poem that is broken, that has room for change and for growth or whatever, it elicits empathy out of the reader and out of the audience. So in my play, in this scene, when Pootie Tang says, you know, and so when I'm homeless, you know, that poem itself was written after spending some time with some of the indigenous people here at one of the homeless camps here in Anchorage, like a couple summer, I think it was like 2019 or something. I do a lot of work, and I've done a lot of work with the homeless and houseless community here. So, and I was just spending time with them, but you see all this ridicule that comes across in media, of come across in the newspapers, the editorials and stuff. And it's like, you know, it's like, we're human too. You know, so what I'm Black, so what I'm gay, so what I'm trans, so what I'm homeless. Like I still deserve respect and honor and love and care and attention that anyone else does. I still deserve time on the microphone. Like, so give me that space, that opportunity. And if so, I'm gonna do it. It's like I'm gonna make it entertaining for you. I won't bore you to death with my poets. And Pootie Tang does that. I love this character, Pootie Tang. And if any of you all know, like Pootie Tang is like goes deep into our African American literary cultural traditions and stuff. You'll find Pootie Tang in works from the turn of the century, the 19th century, 20th century. Pootie Tang is there. Ask my name, and I tell you again, I tell you the same. You know, it's good stuff. So, and yeah, and I'll stop there. But that reminds me of the signifying monkey and playing the dozens and everything. This is where this all comes from. This double consciousness in our words. And like we as writers today, we're still, whether we know it or not, we're still recycling or reinventing or adding on to these literary traditions that have always been there. Because yeah, that's just what we do as Black people, and it's good stuff. So okay, I guess that's it for now.
Well, I think that's a brilliant way to keep playing the dozens, right? Because I think that is also, if maybe the invitation is for folks to read this special issue with in the sort of the flow of the dozens. I think that moves across all of these works, because I think in one way that could also frame all of the readings that we heard tonight. I'm so interested, finally, in just thanking all of you for teaching me tonight, and maybe in some ways the audience learned in their own ways, but what I take away from this is also how to borrow Charles, how do we mitigate, risk? How do we, Sherese, how do we think about moving into the depth of comedy? How do we use humor, as MoHagani is citing, to see again, to see one another? So I'm just taking this as a call to laugh with intention, to be laughed at with intention, as someone who loves to make jokes too. I mean, I think the levity is a form that I think I'm so moved by. And I just wanted to thank all three of you for such a lovely, inspiring, not only reading, but making of this art for us in the world today. You made it. Thank you. Thanks, Duriel, for helping to curate the larger issue. And I think, I would say, unfortunately, the program is coming to a bit of a close. So thanks again to Sherese, MoHagani, Charles, to our ASL interpreter, Cynthia Norman, everyone at Kyle, all the folks at the Poetry Project. And I'll hand it over to my sweetheart, brilliant friend, Duriel.
Thank you, Ronaldo. So I want to thank you, Ronaldo, and as well, our wonderful reader, Sherese, MoHagani, Charles, our ASL interpreter, Cynthia Norman. We'd also like to thank Tara, Marva, Daisy, Dawn, Chinelo, and the whole Obsidian team, with abiding gratitude to Kyle, Noah, Anna, and all of the folk at the Poetry Project for their partnership and collaboration in making tonight possible. Please consider supporting Obsidian by getting a subscription, donating, following us on social media, sharing news about us with your family and friends and cheering, or some combination. We can't do all the good work that we do on behalf of Black writers and artists without your support. So please find the links in the chat for how to subscribe and donate. And as a thank you for your support, we are offering a 25% discount if you pre-order Obsidian Volume 48 to the Playground issue, in which this fantastic work appears, right? So just follow the links in the chat and use the discount code OV48. Thank you all so much, and good night. I can talk some more.